is really kind of going back to all of our factoring techniques from the beginning of the year. So we've done all this kind of stuff before, but it's just reminding you, you don't always have to do P's and Q's, only if there isn't another easier option available to you. So our focus today is just factoring and solving these kinds of things without going through the whole P and Q process. So let's look at this one. X cubed plus 3x squared minus 4x minus 12. Now you could most certainly do P's and Q's, possible zeros, and solve this like we were doing on our test. But there is another option. At the beginning of the year when we talked about factoring, what was our strategy if we had 4 terms?
Grouping.
Grouping. Okay, in grouping, you put the first 2 together, and you put the last 2 together. Now you don't want to put a parenthesis following a subtraction, so I'm going to make this plus a negative 4x minus 12.
You pull out.
So in the first parenthesis you can take out the x squared. In the second parenthesis you can take out negative 4. And how do you know when grouping is going to work? These parentheses match, so I can pull that out. And then you're left with x squared minus 4 is a difference of squares, so it breaks into what?
X minus 2, x plus 2.
So what are my solutions? What makes this 0? Negative 3, negative 2, and 2. Okay. We could graph this now. What would my end behavior be if it were x cubed? Down, up. We hit the x-axis, negative 3, negative 2, positive 2. If I asked for a y-intercept, you could give it to me. If you put x or a 0 in for all of your x's, you're just going to get negative 12. All these have a multiplicity of 1, so it will go through. We could graph something like that.
If you don't ask for the y, do you still want us
If
to
I-
find it to make sure our graph, like,
It's a good idea just as a quick check, but if I don't specifically say, I wouldn't take off if you didn't have it in the right spot. Okay, so then let's use our graph to answer a couple questions. Part C, I want to know where this graph is greater than 0. What does greater than mean? More. So I'm asking where's your graph above the x-axis? So that would be between,
-3 and 2?
and since it's not equal to, I'm going to use parentheses. Union, where else is my graph above the x-axis? 2. If I had said greater than or equal to, then you would use brackets on those. Okay. D. Where is the graph less than 0? So less than means below. Where is it below the axis?
So negative can be negative 3. Negative 2.
Good. Any questions there? Okay, so that's really all we're doing today. Solving equations by factoring instead of P's and Q's, and then the only new questions that we weren't doing before are the less than and greater than zeros that I might ask you from the graph. So let's do another one like that. This one doesn't have 4 terms, so I wouldn't do grouping. What would we do?
Just add X.
And that is something that we were even doing in the previous section. So if you take that out, you're left with x squared minus x minus 6. Then what can you do? So what multiplies to negative 6 and adds to negative 1? Okay, if we set each of these equal to 0, what would make this equal 0? 0, since it was squared, that's multiplicity 2. X minus 3 would give us a 3, and x plus 2 would be negative 2. So if I wanted to graph this, it was an x to the 4th, so what's our end behavior? So we're hitting the x-axis at 0, 3, negative 2. What's going to happen at 0? It'll bounce, and the others will go through. So it's going to look something like this. So can you tell me where this graph is greater than 0? Except we'd say negative infinity because you're going off your axis. So negative infinity to negative 2. Union. What if I said on D less than or equal to 0? So we'd do brackets. Where is this thing negative?
-2 to 0. Or
Since
3.
Yeah, since I said equal to 0, we don't really have to stop here. It's negative all the way to 3 since it had the equal to. Now if I didn't have the equal to, you'd have to say negative 2 to 0 union 0 to 3 with parentheses.
Why do we need the brackets?
Because I threw in an equal to. Equal to means bracket. Any questions on those? I'm going to put a couple up that I just want to solve by factor. What do you think they would do to solve this? Okay, we could factor out a 3 over here, and then each side is factored, but
Could we solve for x?
we need to solve for x. So to do that, what are we going to have to do first?
Distribution.
Yeah, seems kind of contradictory. We're going to factor, but in order to do that, we first have to distribute and get everything on one side. So now I'm going to bring those over. So I'm going to subtract over my 2x squared, subtract over my 27x. I'm writing these in decreasing order just to kind of help here. Then what could we do? Grouping. 4 terms is grouping. Now, can I just put my parentheses like this?
No, you have to distribute your negative.
Okay. So first, we'll make this plus a negative 27 and then throw in our parentheses. So what can we take out of the first one? And the second one? Nine. Now if we just take out a 9, that leaves us with a negative 3x plus 2. And then do my parentheses match? No. So to fix it, we can take out
A negative 9.
So then we can take out the 3x minus 2. Leaves us with x squared minus 9. How do you factor x squared minus 9? Plus and minus. So solving for x, what makes 3x minus 2 equal 0? It's just a 1 because it's not squared. What about x plus 3?
Negative 3.
X minus 3?
Positive 3.
This one I didn't ask you to graph, so you can stop there. Is that okay? Let's do another one by factoring. Okay. What would we do here? Subtract over your x squared. Yes. You really have 2 options. You can do difference of squares here. It might be easiest if we factor out our greatest common factor and then do it. What could we pull out of those? Okay. And then that would leave us with x squared minus 36. So difference of squares, that's x plus 6, x minus 6. So what's x? Good. And remember, you can watch your degree and that'll tell you how many zeros you should get. It was degree 4, so I got 4 zeros. Any questions on that one? Let's do one last problem, and then I'm done. And do one more where we go through everything. X to the 4th minus 6x squared minus 40 equals 0. Can I do grouping on this one? No. Can I do a greatest common factor? No. Then what can I do? We could treat this like a box method. It has an x to the 4th, an x squared, and a constant. If I wanted to do box method, x to the 4th would break into what if you broke it in half? Okay. Then I need 2 numbers that multiply to negative 40 and add to negative 6. Negative 10 positive. Okay. Do either of these factor nicely using difference of squares? No. Let's go ahead and just solve it then. I'm trying to solve anyway, so I just need to set each of these equal to 0. So we'll have to do a square root with that plus and minus. So x is plus and minus the square root of 10. Over here, what's the square root of negative 4?
2.
If I graph this, and x to the 4th, what should my end behavior be? How about? Okay, if you plug in a 0 for all of your x's, if you wanted your y-intercept, that's at negative 40. We cross the x-axis at positive and negative radical 10, which is like 3.1. So we're just going to estimate it there. Can you graph plus or minus 2i? No. These have multiplicity of 1, so our graph will go through. So we get something like this. Where is our graph greater than 0? Negative radical 10 union. Good. If I said equal to, you'd have brackets on your radical 10. And it is less than 0 from positive radical. Okay. Any questions? That's really the end of this section. The homework is on Math Excel, and we've got 20 some minutes.